and more choice. And anyway,
I think it would, a lot of people collect Fuente and maybe Padron, but it's really Fuente is a big collector. And I think, people like to do years. It's just I think it would create more value in the cigar industry because people who like special boutique cigars would be, paying multiples for specific years that are better. Okay, gotta shut up.
I agree with you. And with that, we are live. Welcome. Wednesday, light 'em up time. Welcome back to the Light 'em Up Lounge. Thank you all for joining us today. Thanks for being here with us. Another exciting show coming up, another exciting guest. And without further ado, let's get this thing rolling. It is my pleasure, privilege, and honor to welcome Radamesh Ram Rodriguez from Tabacalera El Artista and El Artista Cigars here, a show that I was looking forward to so badly. And finally, we made it happen. And yeah, what else can I say other than welcome to the Light 'em Up Lounge? Ram, it's great to have you. Thanks for joining us today and being here with us.
Reinhard, it's a real pleasure to be here. I'm very happy and excited. I heard about this, your e-lounge during the lockdown days. And I saw that it was such a big relief for everybody, for all the smoker community. And since the moment I saw it, I was like, okay, I would love to be part of it. And I'm really happy that finally I'm here. So thank you very much. And all good, man. Happy to be here. What else can I say?
As I said, the pleasure and privilege is all ours, Ram, and I very much appreciate that you joined us early on of the journey. You were part of the lounge from really the early days, way back in 2020, and finally to have you as our guest of honor is fantastic. Now let's dive right in, and let me ask you this: you're the third generation and the future of El Artista, the artist. Do you consider yourself more of an artist, a craftsman, or an entrepreneur?
I think everybody that is in the handmade cigar is an artist. Honestly, I don't consider myself an artist. For me, the artist is the team that worked so hard, in order for all of us to enjoy this piece of art, So I think we are all, as a team, as a big family, are artists, all of us.
What is the artistic component that you really gravitate towards? What is it that you feel like you can express as an artist, bring to the table, and why did you find tobacco such a wonderful sheet of blank paper to write on, to paint on, and express your creative freedom?
All the romance that is involved in the art of making a cigar, and not only the making, so we are one of the, I'm blessed to being able to oversee all the operations from the seed to the distribution of the final product. And every single part of it has so many unique techniques. It's very distinctive, where you can achieve so many different things. If you cure the tobacco in one way or another, you will get different results. Even the soil in different regions of the world, the fermentation method, the way you classify, you sort all the tobacco, how you roll the tobacco, how you decide to set up all the fillers inside of the cigar in order to achieve changes or consistency during a smoke. All those little things just leave you so much room for you to be creative and express yourself of what you want people to enjoy out there. So that's just pure art. No questions about it.
just a brief comment to everybody watching us. I know there's plenty of people watching us over on Facebook. If you have questions for Ram, then please make sure to put them underneath the live stream into the comments. We always check the live streams, and I'll happily forward the questions to Ram during the live show. And obviously, all you guys here at the lounge, fellows, friends, regulars, make yourselves heard. I'd love to hear your questions. Speaking of 3 generations, Ram, what does the family legacy mean to you, and that whole component of history and continuing that legacy into the future, keeping the fire burning and the flame alive?
My family, like our company is all about our roots, you know, and we are not what we used to be back in the 50s, where we were just a tiny little hub in the backyard of my grandfather, where we were making cigars, to, you know, this bigger organization with 1,500 people working in making cigars and, you know, dealing with tobacco. But every single decision that we take, we always have tried to, you know, continue with all those values that we inherit from since the beginning, since the start of our company, from little things to very big things. For example, here everybody locally always asks why the colors of all of our infrastructure is white and green, which is completely different to our logo, our corporate colors, and it's kind of odd. It's a very bright green and a very, you know, a clean white. And the reason is that was my grandfather's favorite colors. And every time we have a new infrastructure, every time we do something, we use the same colors just because that's we have done it since the beginning. But also since the beginning, we were always very close to the people that is part of us, all of our staff. And we still, and now that, you know, we have so many people working here, we try to maintain that easy to approach environment, you know, and we help each other. We really need and rely on our staff. We trust them, and we have a very good relationship with all the people that work with us, and that's one of the things that we also inherit from our past.
I can so much relate to that because my background actually is in the hospitality industry, and whenever I work with customers of mine, consultancy, the biggest issue, and I believe that's true for so many industries these days, is finding the right people, and not only finding them, but once you have them, keeping them, and making sure that they feel safe, they feel happy at the company, and will continue this journey with you. How difficult is it for you to maintain and nurture that culture that you have with El Artista, to make sure that you always have the right talent of people and that you can keep them for a long time?
We have a excellent HR department that help us, and an easy flow of communication, you know, from the lowest grade staff to the higher level. The communication doesn't take way too much time. We are also do a lot of internal entrevistas, like we question our staff, you know, and we have like a suggestions box all over the place in order for them to communicate. And I get a report once a month of what is going on, what people think, what do we need in order to improve. Every day it gets harder and harder because we have operations spread across the island. So things are, you know, get a little bit complicated when you start growing at the pace that we've been doing in the last couple of years. But with the right staff in the HR, it's possible. And we just try to, every new town that we go, we try to educate everybody in order for them to understand our culture, and it works. For example, we have over a little bit over a year in a town called La Vega, which is a couple of kilometers from Santiago, where it's the traditional tobacco growing area. And over there, at first, they have a lot of experience working with free trade zones of clothing manufacturing, which is, I don't want to say anything bad about them, but it's very intense, like it's all about numbers. They just care about how many pants you can iron and wash or whatever. I don't know. So when we got there, they kind of have this feeling where, they just want to squeeze me as much as I can in order for them to get their results. Now, after a year, is that most of the people are realizing like, oh, we actually have a lot of room to grow here. There's a lot of opportunities. We have programs where, for example, if you are on college and working, you just need to provide your schedule, and we are very flexible with your study time. And also, when you graduate or are about to graduate, you are first on the line when we need somebody with the degree that you have. And that's something that people really appreciate, because they know that they are not there only to for a lot of manual process, and that's it. But there's also a lot of space to grow in our infrastructure. So yeah, I mean, that's just one of the little things that we try to do in order to keep that culture that we've been building since the last decades.
That's fantastic, and it sounds like a very contemporary approach and a modern way of going about corporate culture and nurturing that. But even though it should be self-explanatory, we always experience on a day-to-day basis and with all different businesses that it is not. How did you get to that point, or where did that realization come from that this is what we need to focus on, this is what we need to work on, and let's make sure that we always put our own people first, because only then can we be successful to our other stakeholders and our customers as well?
So honestly, it's been something that it's just been like that since the beginning. It just happens organically somehow. Obviously now, for example, we are part of this social responsibility program, and now we have to keep record of all the things that we do in order, to help people and make sure everybody's happy inside of our infrastructure. But before that, it just has always been like that in our factory, at least. It's just part of the culture that we've always had, and that's one of the things that I think that makes me most proud of being part of this beautiful family of El Artista.
Mm. What would you say has been sort of the signature or the fingerprint of all the three generations? What do you feel has each and every one of them brought to the table, safeguarded and continued from the past, but probably also challenged and ultimately changed?
So for me, like the first generation, my grandfather, that was our roots, and kind of obviously where everything started. And all of the fermentation techniques, the manufacturing techniques that we currently use, has a little bit of that original essence from my grandfather. So he was the founder. So that's kind of the bigger thing that he apported to among the three generations. Then my father came in the 80s, and he was the first one to start exporting our cigars out of the Dominican Republic. My grandfather was able to build a good infrastructure to sell locally here, basically on the whole island. Then when my father came in, we started exporting mainly to the US. he was the one that have done all the business in Ecuador, where we also have farms, and he still is. My father is still a very important part of this company, and they're responsible of probably 90%, and probably be more than that actually, of the growth of our organization. When I came in, I was the one that started to see a little bit of other frontiers. I was the one that decided to establish ourselves in the US. We have operations in Florida, in Miami. Other than I started working a little bit with our brands, El Artista lines. Before that, we were basically in the background making a lot of private labels for a lot of companies. It was me that took the decision, okay, it's time for us, to build our own thing. And I guess that's what I'm doing right now, and yeah, I mean, there's always a little bit, of a friction, let's say. My father told me stories of when he started working in the company that are just basically the same thing that happens between me and him happened with him and his grandfather. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's part of having a family business.
A blessing and a burden, isn't it?
It is. At the end, it's more of a blessing than anything else, to be fair.
Do you sort of recall any particular, not just stories, but maybe more importantly, like values or key principles that your grandfather and your father established in you?
So unfortunately, I didn't meet my grandfather. He passed away 4 years before I was born. But for my father, I probably can write a whole book about all the values, and he still is the first person that I reach when I have a challenge coming, and or there's something that I just need a good advice, not only as a father but as a businessman, because man, that guy he's very good in what he does, and every day I learn something new out of him. So I'm very proud of being his son. So yeah, there's just way too many things, but on a nutshell, first thing he always teach me since I was a little kid is the man can have a lot of money, but if his word is not valuable, he has nothing. It's better to be a man of a word more than having a lot of money, because that's all that counts, in order for you to build good relationships in your personal and professional life. And I think that's probably the main thing that he always teach me since I was a little kid.
Very important, yeah, and challenging, or I assume it's probably all too tempting for certain people once they reach a certain level business-wise, or once they have certain success that they have accomplished in the past. It seems to become quite tempting to lose that grounding and lose that humble thought and the way you do business.
Absolutely.
How difficult is it sometimes to sort of differentiate between your father and the generation before you in the business? Do you sometimes like switch roles, or the way you talk to your father, is it different from the work and then the personal life?
For me, it's not that hard. For him, maybe a little bit more. I'm usually, like, we can be talking something very serious in the office and something that needs to be taken care of, and maybe we both disagree on the situation, so it gets a little bit tough, the conversation, and 15 minutes after that I'm at his house just fooling around with him, and just having fun with the whole family. For me, it's not that hard. For him, sometimes, if he's mad because I don't know. I didn't close a business he wanted me to do or anything like that. It takes him a little bit more time, but it's okay at the end, you know?
At the end, it's all still family, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Even with my sister has a lot of involvement in the industry too. She's the manager of the administrative department, so she basically manage finance, HR, and yeah, big part. The only exception is operations that I take care of that, but then she managed everything else. And even with her usually is even more intense, but the same, you know. We're taking care of business. A couple of hours after, we're together. I have my kids, and she brings all my nieces, and you know, the whole family is just having fun somewhere.
Beautiful. I believe, Ram, you were 17 when you sort of truly dipped your toes into the cigar ecosystem, but you still pursued different educational and career paths. What did that provide you with in terms of experience and maybe sort of a different mindset and perspective on premium cigars? And why ultimately did you still come back and consider entering the family business?
So at 17, I went to my first trade show actually, and that was where I realized, like, oh wow, like this is what I like and this is what I want, you know. So from that moment, it was very clear for me that I wanted to be part of the family industry, and I wanted to, you know, give my 100% for our organization. I decided to study industrial engineering, mainly because I knew that that degree could help me to organize a little bit our infrastructure. And actually it's been extremely helpful. Now that we are growing, I'm not even traveling the way that I used to be before. Like, I'm not 100% focused on sales as I used to be, because I'm here designing process and improving areas, and which is something that I have a lot of passion for. And then I got a master associate degree in business administration that is very, very helpful as well, because, you know, making sure you're managing things the right way is the key to success. So both of my careers are being very, very successful, very good for me to implement in our organization.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. I mean, you have an incredible number of acres of tobacco plants under your control, a vertically integrated production. How important is it to control every single step of that process? And then sort of where do you plug in your previous experience in order to optimize that and take it to the next level?
So first, you need to be familiar and understand everything, single part of the process, and understand why it's done the way it is do it at that moment. And as an industrial engineer, you know, I was trained to make things more efficient and with the right amount of quality that it requires. So for me, you know, I just like designing, you know, and working in these kind of things. We are on a point as a company that it's not a matter of, you know, it's saving thousands of dollars here, thousands of dollars there. It's more a matter of, you know, saving 1 cent here and 2 cents there in order for guarantee, you know, we are a very efficient company. And that's usually where I step in all the process, and I make sure, you know, it's been done the right way, and we are maximizing all the efforts that we are doing in all of them.
Incredible when you say that you really have to go down to the cent level with every single component, because it just adds up so quickly and ultimately has a tremendous impact on the business overall.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Where do you draw that fine line, and is it sometimes challenging to to find a balance between keeping old traditions, preserving heritage. The cigar industry is so beautifully old-fashioned in many ways, and firmly rests upon tradition and century-old knowledge being passed down from generation to generation. And then you come in with your energy and drive and with your experience, and you're trying to optimize, which I assume in many ways also means iterating processes and bringing in new innovative ideas. Where's that fine line? Where's that balance between the tradition and the innovation?
There is a fine line, and I think it should not be crossed. Like for example, in the cigar making side, we actually have done. We have machines to make the bunch, which is the filler and the binder, that we use for some operations in particular, not for our premium cigars. So when you do the math, it makes a lot of sense. Just okay, let's just do everything by machine, and you just put the wrapper by hand, and you can call it handmade because you put the wrapper on it by hand. That's where you're just crossing the line when you do those kind of things, at least based on my personal interpretation. It's just not as authentic as having a real handmade product. But like for example, when you are in the same scenario, and instead of bunching the cigar 100% by hand, you use a bunching machine. I'm pretty sure you have seen those bunching machines, which is like basically,
Lieberman, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. So for the people that doesn't know, it's basically a machine where you put the binder by hand, then you take all the fillers and you put it inside, and you just pull a manual. How you say that? Like, yeah, you just pull something that rolls the cigar for you. I believe that is the same as just doing it by hand. It's actually just better because the quality of the cigar does not get compromised because of how tired the cigar roller is. So, like it's just, there's a big line that you just need to make sure you respect, and yeah, basically that.
With all these little details and components of craftsmanship, when you're doing something by hand, and you multiply that into the millions, obviously there's many different little alleyways where you can go wrong, and where ultimately the quality and the consistency of the very best products stems from and comes from. Do you feel that in the world of premium cigars, with all the different factories, all the different brands out there, are there certain innovations or creative ideas where you can have a competitive edge and do something truly differently compared to all the other ones out there? Or would you say ultimately it just comes down to a few very basic principles and always do them right?
There's still room to innovate and do things different. We have, since we do a lot of private labels, I receive a bunch of people with innovative ideas. A big percentage of them are things that have already been tried and maybe doesn't work for some reason in particular. But some other ones come with ideas that you're like, hey, like that actually makes sense. That's actually something we could do in order for us to be different than anybody else and be a little bit more competitive. This process is always changing at the end, not as fast as they used to be before, probably, because we are just a very old industry, but there's always room to discover new things and make new things. For example, I remember when I was a kid that the only way you could guarantee that the draw of a cigar was correct was by two methods. That was the two standard quality controls: the draw master, and you take a half wheel and you put it on a scale, you divide it, and you have the average weight in grams per cigar, and that's it. Those were the only two things you could do in order to guarantee that the cigar had the right draw. Like 4 years ago, more or less, we started buying small scales, those ones that is usually used on the jewelry industry, and instead of letting our quality control department do everything, we actually put one of those little scales to every single buncher in the room. And all of a sudden, we went from a 3% defective to less than 1%. And the draw master, we still use it, but it's not as important as it used to be before, because most of the cigars, they already have the right draw. Because if they are not sure of the weight, they just measure it right at the spot, and that's it. And with something so simple that costs like $8, I was able to solve something that works perfectly.
Would you say that those changes primarily happen on the factory level and once you do the actual assembly of the cigars, or is that also true for the tobacco growing operations, the pre-industry? Where do you see the most room for such innovation?
In the growing and curing more than anything else. I think that's where most of the rooms for innovation is. Also in fermentation, there's a lot of room, but in the growing side is the most old school out of everything. There's just a lot of room to innovate over there. Just to give you an example, is the fact that most of the farms, we still use charcoal in the curing barns, and in barns that are not very efficient. So you're heating up, but you have to really do it, because a lot of that heat is escaping because there's no proper insulation. We've been doing tests, two kinds of tests actually, in an experimental farm we have here in Tamboril. One is the same way that is done in Ecuador. Instead of charcoal, they use with propane. They have like a little device that throws fire, and they put a metal plate on top, and it works as a heating device. We tried that, but we also tried with an electric heater that blasts the hot air inside the room. And that you can analyze, investment versus results, which one is the best. There's just a lot of room, even in the growing the seed until you cut the tobacco from in the farms. There's a lot of things that can be done in order for us to improve it.
One particular example, the Exactus, which has a very particular process of fermentation with some of the tobacco that you use. Where did that idea originate from?
So wine fermenting tobacco is something that some companies do it. They basically, we do it because in the fermentation process, in order for the wild yeast to grow inside of those tobacco bales, you basically need three things. You need the food, which is the sugar, you need oxygen, and you need water. When you apply wine to the equation that has a lot of sugars in it, that will help you accelerate the process, and it will get into a higher temperature. At the end, you lose a little bit of tobacco because the temperature is so hot, but you end up with a very beautiful, dark, and oily tobacco that is so unique, and it gives that really reddish note on it, and it's worth it at the end. Wine fermented is that's basically why we do it.
Very true. And I think the Exactus in particular is a line that you envisioned, you developed and blended all by yourself, where you sought to blend that cigar with that specifically fermented tobacco. There's quite a few other innovative ideas and so many different brands, like Ramon Pulita Rodriguez. I believe he started making cigars in 1956. Obviously, he's the namesake for one of your other brands. In general, how would you describe the range of what El Artista does and produces? How are they different? Where's the inspiration? Sort of, how do you try to spread that and create a a holistic portfolio that speaks to different audiences and different palettes?
So since we've been making cigars for such a long time, we have done a lot of different things. Most of them for private label, but what we're trying to do with our portfolio of El Artista lines is to have a little bit of everything for every single the smoker profile there is out there. You know, for example, we have this little cheroot style cigar with a very funny name. It's called Fogly. Those Fogly is a very convenient cigar because it's basically full ligero, full body cigar, but very quick and fast smoke. It's freehand roll, very similar of what the cigars that used to be very popular back in the 70s here in the Dominican Republic. In Spain, they have the señoritas. Here we have one called perritos. This is more like a little perrito or señorita for people that have tried the ones in Spain, but very strong, very, very strong with a lot of character on it. And at a very affordable price point. This is more for, you know, if for you to smoke during winter time when you don't have a lot of time and stuff like that. Then it starts scaling up from there. Buffalo 10 is just a very beautiful project that I'm very happy and proud of because it's been very successful. Basically, in all the markets that we have brought it in, it's a cigar with a lot of value and at a very competitive price point. We did this blend that cigar looking to show people, you know, what El Artista is capable of. And the fact that just because it's not an expensive cigar doesn't mean it's a bad cigar. And that's kind of the message we're trying to send with that one. Pulita is a extremely special one for me. We did that to commemorate our 60th anniversary 5 years ago, and it took us a lot of time for us to create that blend, mainly because I was looking for a tobacco that could resemble what my grandfather used to smoke, which was very hard because, you know, I was not even around when he was smoking cigars. It took me a lot of time with a lot of reading, a lot of checking on the very old blend list of the factories. But at the end, we came up with that beautiful cigar that we are very proud of as well.
How hard was it to make that switch from primarily private label focused to then focusing more on your own brands also? And what is it that sort of captures your imagination more, or where do you feel more at home? Is it when you can provide somebody else with the very best material and with your processes, your creativity and your ingenuity, or do you rather focus on coming up with your own ideas and visions?
That's a tough question. I honestly like both. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I'm blending for somebody else and I'm like, wow, why I should just take this and make a cigar myself because it's so good. Which one I like the most? Yeah, I just like blending cigars, man. I just like being involved in the process. So it's a tie for both of them. Absolutely, yeah. Operations is my life. You know, I like going out there. I like, you know, that other side where, you know, the commercialization part. I really like it. But my real passion is operations. It's just being in the factory, talking to people, making sure we're doing things right, trying cigars. Right now, I'm actually doing my homework. I'm smoking 2 cigars at a time because I need to see what's going on with this blend. But yeah, operations, anything regarding operations is my favorite all across.
When you try to come up with something new, do you take more of a conceptual approach? Like, do you try to fill certain gaps in the market? Is it the tobacco that leads the way and leads to new creations, or where's the starting point for this is what we want to put into the market next. This is where we want to go with the company?
It all depends on the project. Sometimes it's because I just discovered this awesome tobacco that I want to try. I want to see what's going on, what can I do with it. Sometimes it's just to fill a gap in our portfolio that I think there's room that we should try to explore. It all depends. Like every single new project that we bring in has its own characteristics. For example, in this one, actually, when I'm smoking here, this is a very beautiful Sumatra, Ecuador wrapper. I cannot disclose what's the blend inside, but 50% of the filler that it has is something so unique that I was like, okay, I definitely need to make something with it. I discovered that tobacco in one of our, like my father, he's been growing a little bit of this tobacco for a while, and I was in one of the curing barns, and I was like, hey, what the hell is this? And I started playing with it. I fell in love, and I have, since the lockdown, blending with this cigar, with this tobacco in particular, and everything is inspired based on that tobacco in particular, But this case, for example, Buffalo 10, it was probably another reason why we decided to blend that cigar in particular,
Is it a specific seed varietal that you're using, or does it also sort of involve like different processes? Like I know Andullo, for example, is something that is typical for DR, but probably an old technique that you won't see as often today.
So it's a tobacco that is not, like what I'm smoking now, is a tobacco that is not traditionally for the premium cigar industry at all. We did the fermentation, the curing and the fermentation process of it, assuming it was for tobacco, and we got a fantastic result. So it's just something so different. The only problem it has is that it burns extremely slow, and that's why I'm always retouching. And that's one of the things that I need to fix in order, for me to achieve a final blend. But it's just different. It's just something wild and different that I've been playing around with.
Beautiful, interesting. Ian had a question, and I assume it's probably tough to answer, but he was curious about the El Artista style. And if I may add to that question, is there even something like an El Artista style, or would you say, well, because you make cigars for so many different people, it truly depends on the project and whoever you're working with?
It all depends on the project, but I believe all the factories have an essence. Like I can tell a cigar is from my factory sometimes just by seeing it, like, oh, I know that cigar came from my factory. Sometimes, like, I'm in my dad's office and he receives a lot of people and they're always bringing cigars. So I'm like, okay, this one is from the factory. I want to smoke this one because I know for sure this one is going to be good, So at the end, every factory has this essence. And the main reason is, I think, it's because we all do the fermentation different one with the other. Maybe I take longer time to ferment my seco and everybody just do a very fast fermentation. Maybe the environment, the humidity in the warehouse where I do certain process is completely different and I get different results. We can both take the same crop, we divide it half. Reinhard, you take it, I'll take the other half, and I'm pretty sure, even if we share, okay, let's make a cigar 25% ligero, 25% viso, 50% seco, I'm 100% sure that the result is going to be completely different. So there is an essence. There is an essence. In order for you to discover our essence, I guess you have to try them. But all the factories have one, that's for sure. And try a couple of our private labels, so you can say like, oh, okay, yeah, was definitely blend by Ram.
Where do you think that truly comes from? Like we often talk about terroir and whatever that term might mean to certain people, and I believe that you could argue you have the soil, you have the climate, the microclimate even, and sort of the particular origin of where your tobacco grows and under which conditions. you might extend the idea of terroir to other territories where suddenly the factory and also the people come into the equation. Where do you think that this particular expression that you mentioned before sort of comes into the overall equation?
I got lost. Can you repeat the question again?
So when you talk about that signature, sort of the El Artista style that is unique, where do you think that comes from? Is it just the way the tobacco grows, where it grows, and then how you treat it? Is it the people? Like, do you think there is something like a personal influence on terroir?
I think it's such a complex a mix of different factors. Just for example, we are big in tobacco trading. Actually, our biggest most of the gross income of the company, around 95% comes from tobacco trading. We grow tobacco to resell. And sometimes some of the customers, they bring me cigars, and I'm talking about from small guys to very big companies and people with big names in the industry. And I'm smoking the cigars and I'm like, wow, this is wonderful. What the hell do you have in this that it tastes so good? It's like, your tobacco. Like, what do you mean? I know what you bought. I use that tobacco in my factory all the time, and it's so different. So yeah, it's like eating Indian food. Every restaurant has a little bit something that makes it different.
Can you give us just a brief overview in order for our viewers to understand the dimensions of what we're looking at here? How big is the tobacco operation of El Artista, and sort of the territory that you cover and the amplitude of tobacco that you produce?
So our company, we grow a lot of tobacco here in the Dominican Republic, in different regions on the island, mainly here in the north. We are probably one of the largest leaf growers here on the island. We also grow in Ecuador. Over there, we have around 600 hectares of farmland, where we grow different kinds of seeds. Connecticut seed, this Sumatra came from Ecuador. Different Habano seeds like Criollo 98, HBA, H2000, Corojo, little bit of other stuff. Here on the island, we grow a lot of Cuban seeds, Dominican seeds, and hybrids. We've been working with hybrid seeds probably since 2005, more or less, where we hire a team to start, creating new seed varieties. And
which base materials would you be working with there when you say hybrids?
It all depends on the tobacco that we're looking for, but different traditional seeds. Sometimes we try to improve one seed in particular. Like, for example, we have this tobacco that we call it Piloto Seco, dry Piloto. That tobacco is very good because you can grow it in places where you can have issues with dry weather. Maybe there's not a source of water nearby, so you only depend on the rain that it falls. But also seeds that we create basically from scratch. For example, we have this one that is called 1900. That tobacco, we did it because there was a need in the industry for a big leaf, very similar to the American broadleaf. And that is used mainly in the mass market industry. And we grow a lot of that. We have, work a lot also with the Dominican Tobacco Institute. There's this leaf in particular, the T13, that was a project that the Dominican Tobacco Institute was doing themselves, and then we joined efforts, and we were the first one to be able to get results good enough for us to start growing big crops of that seed in particular, and that was thanks to the efforts that we done in the farms. So a hybrid is usually either an improved version of one seed or a seed that is made with different kinds of tobacco seeds.
Rem, I sometimes feel like when people talk about hybrids and as you mentioned, improving the quality of certain tobaccos by hybridization, it's primarily to either ramp up the yield or make the leaf more resistant against blue mold, black shank, whatever it is. And there seems to be a slight romanticism about original seeds, whether that is Corojo, and I'm certainly not in a position to have an understanding or judge what is still original and when does a seed naturally start to adapt and change because of its environment. But would you agree that there is something to that romantic idea of keeping original seed material, or would you say, well, ultimately it doesn't really matter from a sensory perspective? It's more important to have stable seeds and resistance.
So yeah, we need stable and resistant seeds in order for us to continue this art. But yeah, for example, have this thing for the real Piloto Cubano, like the original Cuban seed that arrived on this island in the late 60s and became the most popular tobacco until Criollo 98 arrived and started becoming the most popular. The original one, I have tried it several times. I actually use a little bit in my factory, and it's so special, man. Like, it's just, you can tell. It's just like when you smoke Cameroon, that like, okay, this is a very good Cameroon tobacco. It's kind of the same with that Piloto. So citric, so perfumey, like it's just like smelling my perfume when you feel the smoke. You can get that with the improved seeds, but that original one is just one of a kind. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of in between. We need to improve every year, and we need to make sure that the future crops are gonna be there. But those original ones are just so good.
Is there any chance to preserve that even more, or to foster that even more, or would you say it's just not possible under natural circumstances?
I think it's possible. It's just way much more expensive on a point that sometimes it just doesn't make any sense. We grow that original Piloto only in virgin soil. If you have a virgin soil and you know that you are very far away from any other farm, the odds of it to grow are higher than anybody and than anywhere else. The yield is very small anyways, because back then that was the yield and that's it. It just got improved with time. So, but yeah, it's possible. It's possible. It just takes a lot of effort and energy in a point that sometimes it just doesn't make any sense, because otherwise this will be a very expensive hobby.
Yeah, and I mean, again, thinking about the wine industry, certain manufacturers just dramatically restrict their yield because the wines that they're using are so old and they have so little yield, but the quality of the grape material is just beyond what you could imagine. And then as a matter of consequence, it leads to a very expensive product, but you still retain some of that original character.
Yeah.
Ram, we had a question from Macy, who's here with us at the lounge, regarding not the tobacco side, but I believe the packaging component. Macy, welcome.
Well, welcome. Hello, cigar socialites. How are you? I'm a big El Artista fan, and I did have a question just about packaging until there was an amazing discussion about tobacco seed genetics that kind of derailed my thought process, but that was really good stuff. Ram, if I may, I've got a couple comments I wrote, and the list has grown. I'm gonna try to fly through them and then get to my question, but it's an opportunity to tell you these things, and I want to take it. First of all, I smoke a lot of expensive cigars that are mediocre or worse. It's nice to actually smoke one that's affordable and actually quite good, to invert that. So that I thank you for that. I also really like a lot of the the Connoisseurs Club that Abe Davina does at Smoke Inn. The cigars that you've sent in there, I thought were really good as well. I just want to tell you that. And I want to thank you. I think your brand may be the best as far as, and I know Reinhard's all about the experience and maybe not focused on the value all the time as much as some of us, myself, but I think there's a respect that your brand shows to consumers and how hard we work to make the money to buy these cigars. And I really just appreciate any manufacturer, yourself included, whether it's $100 cigar or $5 cigar, just respecting the value and making sure the cigar is worth the price, even if it's $100 cigar. Just it's not about the amount of dollars. It's about, I think, respecting the consumer. And I think there's there needs to be a compact. We need to respect the manufacturers and the art that you do. And so I really want to commend you on that, and have always wanted to tell you that. Related to that, I love the tradition of cigar boxes, but I really actually like what you did on Buffalo 10. Well, many things, but I really love the packaging. I think it's beautiful. I think craft packaging in packs of 10 is the wave of the future. I've got so many empty cigar boxes. I just don't know what to do with them. I've got this room back here, it's full of them. And I have nothing left to do with them. I don't know how many trees I'm destroying. And also, I imagine there's a cost to that. And, I love a beautiful box if it's maybe a certain special edition or whatever. But I bought some special edition of the Davidoff, the most recent Eladio Diaz, his last birthday cigars and those came in craft packaging. So my point is, if Davidoff can do it, for the love of God, then I think the door is open for everyone to do that. So I really like the packaging. I love the 3 blends you have in the Buffalo 10. It's simple, but you kind of hit the points. So my question is, can you talk a little bit about the American tobaccos that you use in the Maduro of your Buffalo 10? And can you maybe nerd out for us a little bit on seeds? How do you acquire? Do you grow your own seeds? Are there companies that sell seeds? How do you verify that one, Corojo heirloom is actually someone else's, or Criollo? Is there any verification? Can you give us some inside baseball on kind of how that works? And I'm really interested in that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Macy. Yeah, on the packaging, we kept it very simple with Buffalo 10. We took a lot of time to create those 3 blends, it took us a real long time. And what we were aiming there is, let's make an extended smoke with a lot of value and keep the rest simple, beautiful but simple. And I'm very happy to see that. I think we achieve it. That craft paper, a very simple band, 1 color only. Same for the sticker that we put outside. Everything just nice and simple. And with all our energy, all of our effort in having a cigar with a lot of value. On the tobacco that we use from the US, on the Buffalo 10, we use a Pennsylvania broadleaf. We actually use some tobaccos from the US, not only that, but we import a lot of broadleaf from PA and from Connecticut. Also some other Pennsylvania tobacco. The American tobacco has a lot of character, and it's very good to use them in some blends. very spicy, very bold, very good tobacco. We also usually import a couple of containers a year of Connecticut shade tobacco, and even some fire cure. We use fire cures not on our lines, but we do a couple of private labels for Europe with that fire cure tobacco, Kentucky fire cure. So yeah, I mean, Buffalo 10, we did it just like that, and we just stay away from the boxes, and anything that could make the cigar more expensive in order, just to be as direct as we can and just to show what El Artista is capable of manufacturing. Yeah.
If I may, is any of the Pennsylvania tobacco, do you know, is it Amish grown?
Yes.
Okay.
Broadleaf tobacco is Amish, bro. Great people to work with. Amish people, they are very honest. They are very hardworking. All of them family business. It's beautiful. That Amish culture is so unique. It's very interesting to work with them. I love going to Lancaster and all the region because of that.
Macy, many thanks for your comments and for the question. Over to Brian.
Hey, good afternoon. My new glasses. I spilled scotch on my t-shirt. So
Perfect timing.
sorry. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So sorry if you hear the gardeners. We're having the great leaf blower contest of 2022 here in SoCal. They battle each other for who can be the loudest. I was curious. I love what you guys were speaking about earlier in terms of running your company with such nobility and integrity. And I was wondering, just to give you a chance to sort of brag on yourself a little, if you have a specific moment. I mean, it's hard, I imagine, when everything you do with your company every day is with such nobility and integrity, but do you have a specific story or example of a moment when it was maybe a tough decision to do the right thing in terms of, well, we know we're going to take a hit financially, but we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do in terms of treating the workers well, or like you said, looking out for the consumers, and anything specific come to mind?
Yeah, so even like during the lockdown days, for example, here in the Dominican, we have a mandate of lockdown with some exceptions. We were part of that exception. We are a free trade zone, so we were able just to continue working regardless of the new regulations. We could just operate business as usual. But mainly in our main facilities in Tamboril, our population is old. We are a very old company, so we have people there. Average age, I think, is 50, is anywhere 52, 53 is kind of the average. But we have people there that they are plus 70 plus. It didn't make any sense for us to make them, go to work knowing that there was this big threat going on. So we decided to close. It took us 2 months in order to organize everything and make sure everybody will be safe in the facilities. In that moment, nobody knew anything about COVID, so it was basically putting glass between all the employees in the packaging room. In that facility in particular, everybody's very crowded, so we have to take another warehouse to extend our packaging so they could be far apart from each other. What else? We had to build some tunnels to disinfect everybody with like a mat full of disinfectant so they can wash their shoes while passing by, while getting sprayed with a weird chemical that should disinfect everybody. Yeah, a lot of crazy things, but it took us a lot of time and a lot of money, but we did it, just because it was the right thing to do. We didn't want to put anybody on risk. and yeah, it is what it is. That's just one example of the many things. And even on the business side, we always try to do things right, regardless of anything, you know.
That's great. Thank you. I love that. Yeah. You can do something the right way. You could rob a bank well. You could do it well, but it wouldn't be the right thing to do. So
That's
really
correct.
cool. I like that. Cool. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Cheers.
Rem, I very much appreciate Macy's comment on the superbly reasonable prices that you put on certain of your cigars. And it is truly one of the core strengths, I would say, of El Artista as a cigar manufacturer. Buffalo 10 being one incredible example. How is your approach different there? And do you say the ability to do that, to provide such incredible value for money, is a result of your vertical integration, or is it just how you look at things in their entirety?
I think the fact that we are very vertically integrated is one of the main things that made us able to make a cigar like that one. And not only on this side, but you know, well, right now I'm in the building where I am now is from my other company that is a logistics company. So we are we get very good rates when moving products from one place to another. And the fact that we have our own operations in the States, where you know we can be much more competitive because there's no middleman between the factory and the retailer. So definitely the fact that we are vertically integrated is the one that give us a lot of opportunity, you know, to be very competitive and make products like Buffalo 10 that has a lot of value.
Ram, before we get towards the end of the show slowly, I'm curious to hear a little bit of your perspective when it comes to the industry as a whole. We know that there were certain controversies about marketing recently. Just yesterday, this whole story with the CRA sort of blew up in everybody's face. And as much as we always pat ourselves on the shoulder for the brothers and sisters in the family of the leaf, it sometimes feels like there's also division in the industry. I would say primarily in the United States, where that seems to be sort of an ongoing issue over the last couple of years. In general, though, how bullish or bearish are you about the premium cigar industry and the community around it?
So I think it's a beautiful community. Not only the one most of the people see out there in online or in their local cigar lounge, but even here, you know, there's a lot of effort or collaboration effort among people inside the industry, and that's one of the things that makes this industry so beautiful. The fact that we all know each other, that yes, we compete to each other, but at the same time, we work together to solve common issues. Every single day, you know, the biggest threat are all the governmental regulations all across the globe. But if we're together, you know, I think we can overcome all those threats and get used to all these new regulations and all of those problems.
What do we all need to do better in order to live up to that promise of the family of the leaf even more?
So I think, you know, to talk, you know, locally to your local government, show support to this industry, and be our representative out there, you know, so they can see that this is actually art, and it's just beautiful how many families in this part of the world live out of this and wake up every day with a lot of passion in order to make products like this one, and also obviously support your local cigar lounge, support everybody involved in this industry, and yeah, you know, like try to spread the this community as much as you can.
Absolutely true. And yeah, I believe just yesterday it was great to see that despite some troublesome comments and a lot of discussion that went on social media, there were so many thoughtful messages and comments about inclusion and the cigar industry and the community coming closer together again. And I believe we need to remind ourselves that it's not just an empty promise, and it's not just some marketing fluff that we're talking about the family of the leaf, but that there needs to be unity, and there needs to be a sense of community and camaraderie. And as I always said, I mean, I hope that Light 'em Up can be part of that, and can help to spread that message of love, respect, and unity. Ram,
Yeah.
it is wonderful to share this conversation with you. It's wonderful to learn about your incredible operation. And I mean, what you have built is tremendous. What your family has built is incredible. Yet you remain such a humble, passionate, and down to earth gentleman. And I think that is cigar culture and the premium cigar industry at its very best. So I want to personally thank you for that, and for giving us the opportunity to get to know you a little better, to understand what El Artista is all about. And it's absolutely wonderful to share that message, because it sometimes feels like for some people El Artista is probably a bit more behind the scenes, or you know, one of the less noisy companies out there when it comes to singing your own gospel. But you do it with elegance and finesse, and ultimately it's your work that shines. And I take my hat off to that. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Reinhard. Again, it was a real honor to be with all of you guys today. You know, lining up for me, you know, is something that since that beginning I saw it, and it was really what we needed in that moment. And I'm very glad to see that it's a growing family, it's a growing community, and yeah, I'm just extremely happy, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. It means a lot, and coming from you, it is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Ram, before we go, one final question though, because we always have a little last one that we throw on top there. We started with El Artista, the artist notion. And I just said that what you accomplished and your family accomplished is, there's a lot of praise for it and people already acknowledge it. Yet so many artists, probably decades or centuries down the line, will be recognized for their achievements, which is a pity. But what would you love to be remembered for? And what would you love to be sort of that very artistic, unique signature and style, and the contribution that you as Ram Rodriguez and as Tabacalera El Artista bring to the table and to the industry?
So for me, I would like to be recognized as somebody that just put that a little grain in this huge industry and in this beautiful community. You know, I always, you know, I love talking with people with new ideas. There's a bunch of new factories here. Every time, you know, somebody present, oh, I just opened a factory. Hey, you know, talk to me about it. Let me know what can I do to help. You know, I think we need more. For example, even myself, you know, I open my company in Miami, and I had no idea what I was doing. You know, I knew the rules. I knew how to make cigars. I didn't know the other side. You know, the sales part of it. I'm pretty sure if I had somebody giving me better advice, I was gonna be able to take better decisions in those moments. And now that I already have some of that experience, for me to transmit and make things easier to people in order for them to do what their dream is. I think it's beautiful, and who knows, maybe I gave an advice to somebody out there that now is doing better, and maybe it's gonna be like super big in the industry. I will feel very proud of that. So for me, it's that, like, just adding that little piece of grain in this beautiful industry to make the difference, just as a lot of people just like you are doing it already.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you from heart. Radamesh, Ram Rodriguez, thanks for being at the Light 'em Up Lounge. A true pleasure and privilege. All the very best, and hopefully we can sit down and have a cigar together super soon. Many thanks.
Look forward to it, Reinhard. Thank you, and thank you everybody here. Bye-bye.
Thank you.